welcome. We have a very important and interesting show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about buying and selling a home. I think we all probably know someone who is looking for a home or thinking of selling their home, toying with the ideas. So I think it will be very informative for all of us. My guest is a realtor in the Twin Cities who's been very, very successful. She's been named a super real estate agent by the Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine 5 years in a row, and had a similar designation from the Twin Cities business magazine. Rebecca Powell is with me, and Rebecca is with the Keller Williams Integrity Realty Lakes office. Well, welcome.
Mary, thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. I'm going to jump right in because I have a long list of questions.
Okay.
I told her I'd like to have her give the short answer, and then we'll see if we can cover the waterfront, so to speak. It's a seller's market I keep hearing right now. And I'm wondering, as an experienced realtor, how long you think it might be a seller's market? Is there any way to know?
Well, 2015 has been an incredible year for sellers. And for the market as a whole, we're at 10-year highs. During 2015, I would say that almost all of my listings have received multiple offers.
Really?
And it's just been incredible. But now we're getting into the fall. We are in the fall, and the market does shift. It has seasonal shifts, and things are slowing down a little bit. The experts seem to believe that the next year, moving forward into 2016, the market will still be strong and likely still a seller's market, but prices will be sustaining at a lower rate.
So prices
So
they
won't continue to go up as quickly as they have been going, because otherwise the market could become unsustainable, and everybody wants to avoid another bubble.
Okay, so prices may kind of level out in 2016.
That's right.
So if you're thinking of selling, maybe start moving on it.
You know, that is a big question for both buyers and sellers. What is the right time? And it really depends on so many factors for those individuals. It's a little bit like a puzzle, and all the pieces need to fit together. For buyers, I really tell them to stay tuned in to the interest rates, because that affects their affordability in a major way. For sellers, I think if they're thinking of buying and selling, they should consider the rates as well on their buy side. But it certainly is a good market if you're wanting to sell. It's a booming market for sellers.
This show will probably air throughout the year because of all our systems we go to. But is it typically fall and winter when things slow down, and spring and summer in the real estate world that they pick up?
That is typically true. There are seasonal shifts. Also, there are, during any holiday, whether it's the 4th of July holiday, the Christmas holiday, the market tends to slow down. So I tend to encourage sellers to avoid listing their house just before a holiday. So that is typically a seasonal shift, and the market is always changing. It's very dynamic, and sometimes it just almost feels like the wind shifting, and you're not sure if it's just your particular business that's shifting, or is it the market. It's always shifting.
When you talk about prices, I know that there's always caution, don't price your house too high, and we're talking now to sellers, because if you price it too high and have to come down, that's not as good as pricing it right in the beginning. Can you just speak a little bit about that, though?
Yes, I think pricing is critical, and if you can price a home right, right as soon as it is listed, that is ideal, because a new listing is hot. And if you start having interest immediately, or even before a home goes on the market, I'm a big believer in pre-marketing my listings.
Now, what does that mean?
Creating a buzz about the listing, getting information about that home coming on. And again, this year, numerous homes have sold without even hitting the market in multiple offers, just by creating a buzz about the home. And so if it's priced right, you'll generate that kind of interest. And when that kind of interest is generated, even if once it's on the market, it increases the odds that you're going to get multiple offers. And multiple offers for a seller is the goal.
That's the dream kind of situation, isn't it?
Yes, it just generates competition. And it only takes 2 offers to be a multiple offer situation. But again, during the course of this year, I've had numerous listings with 7 or more offers.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
That is very interesting.
And so if a home is not priced right, you can miss the market. And the longer it lingers or languishes, the more you lose. As far as price, you're just going to lose momentum, or maybe you don't even get momentum. It depends on how long.
So the pricing is crucial.
It's critical.
How long is a home now? And we're taping in mid-October of 2015. How long does an average home take before it's sold in terms of finding the right buyer? Maybe not the closing costs, but from the time it goes on sale, or for time it's up for sale,
right?
And when it's actually sold, what's the average?
Well, the market is real estate is a very local market, and so it varies even from neighborhood to neighborhood within the metro area and outside of the metro area. So it's difficult to answer that for just one particular comprehensive group, but there are statistics out there that are readily available to the public. But I would say, in my opinion, for my listings in this market, less than 15 days is ideal.
And quite common?
Very common.
Very common.
Yes.
That's a short time, isn't it?
It's very short.
Compared to 5 years ago.
Yes.
What was it then? Do you have any?
I honestly, I don't recall, but I do know
but longer than 15 days.
Yes, and I tell my clients, when we put a home on the market, we'll know quickly if it's priced properly or not, because there are 3 things that will happen. One will be, if they do not get showings, it's priced wrong. It's too high. If they receive lots of showings but no offer, it's also their price. And sometimes homes will have multiple showings and no offer, and that is price as well. And I, not this year, but last year, had a very hot listing, and they had 185 showings. And it was the price. And you would think, well, why doesn't someone just write an offer? But many buyers will not write an offer if they don't think it's priced right. So once we adjusted the price, they got multiple offers. But that was an incredible number of showings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, oh my gosh, when are we going to move this house?
Right, yeah.
In terms of showings, I've been seeing in the papers that staging is something people are doing pretty uniformly now. And maybe for those who aren't recently looking or selling, staging doesn't even ring a bell, but can you define it, and then is it important?
I am a huge believer in staging. I think it's critically important for getting top dollar for your home. With that said, I think that staging is somewhat of a generic term, because when people think of staging, they might think it entails their home is emptied, a stager brings in furnishings and stages the entire home. I have a stager that I work with, and I have a staging consultation for all of my sellers, and the stager comes in and gives tips and gives them a game plan of what she believes that they need for their home. And sometimes it's just a matter of them rearranging their own furnishings or
Getting rid
making
of
a
the
few
clutter.
touches.
I'm sure
Always
that's
decluttering.
Declutter.
Declutter. And then some people will just rent maybe a few pieces of furniture, or maybe just some accessories, or maybe nothing. But again, it's having that stager who has a vision for what they need to do and following those instructions. I believe it's critical.
And who pays for that, Rebecca?
I pay for the consultation for all my clients.
And so that's part of
Yes.
part of the deal.
It's
Okay.
part of my marketing plan, and I just feel it's a good business decision to do that. Yes.
I also enjoy reading about homes in terms of remodeling, and it sounds like, from what I've read, the bathroom, the kitchen are key rooms if you're going to put some money into getting them more presentable, more ready for sale. Those two rooms are important.
They are very important. One thing that, you know, I tend to look at the big picture. And some people may just need to do some painting and make some improvements. I don't want my clients to overspend on making major improvements just before listing. And this is just my opinion. Maybe not everybody shares that. But kitchens in particular are very personal, and they're expensive. And so if you do not, in my opinion, typically want to spend a huge amount of money on a kitchen, and then you kind of, spend all the funds that you might have in your budget, and then what if it doesn't sell? You've kind of painted yourself into a corner.
Well, I'm sure sellers will like to hear this, that it's not a necessity to do much upgrading, so to speak.
Well, I believe, again, I'm talking about a total renovation, because those can be very expensive. There are so many things that can be done without completely renovating a kitchen. And again, kitchens, baths as well, they're personal. I work with buyers too, and sometimes they'll come into a home and, make comments such as, I wish these cabinets weren't so dark. I wish they would have done this. I wish they would have done that. And so I try to give my opinions about what I think my clients need to do to get the most bang for their buck. And sometimes it can be small things. And sometimes it's staging too, because you can have a beautiful kitchen, but if the rest of the rooms don't show well, you're missing the boat.
It's a complicated business, isn't it?
Yes, it can be.
I have sold a couple homes on my own through the years, and it went just fine, but I know that probably as a realtor you're thinking, that's a dangerous thing to do, Mary. When friends ask you, should I try and sell my home on my own, do you discourage them? Are there any instances when it does make sense?
Well, I know that certainly there are people that have success selling their homes themselves. We call them FSBOs in real estate. I personally believe having a professional realtor is advantageous to a seller, because there are a lot of moving pieces in the transaction, and generally the people that are selling their home themselves are paying a realtor on the buy side, so they're typically paying that fee anyway, so they're really just eliminating a listing agent. So myself, my academic and business background is in marketing, and so I'm a huge believer in marketing. And I believe that when I market my listings and generate multiple offers and generate this, strategically generate interest, that my clients end up with a higher price. And in addition, there are many things that can happen along the way in the transaction. And for instance, this year, when the market started, when prices started rising in the market, the appraisals had to kind of catch up. And so if a home wasn't appraising, so for instance, I try to generate backup offers for my listing. So if maybe an appraisal came in low, the sellers have another alternative for a new buyer that may have a different lender and the home may appraise. And also just in communicating with appraisers, if you're a neighborhood expert, they'll sometimes say, I just don't see the comps out there. And then I can say, well, here are the comps that I've used. I believe that they will show that this home is priced
and the
properly.
Comps, meaning other homes of comparable
Yes.
size and neighborhood.
Yes.
And everything. Okay.
And you have to choose comparables. There's a certain subjectivity to them. It can't be just based totally on square footage because of finishings and so forth that may be in the home.
Well, I want to shift gears. We've got only about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And talk about from the buyer's point of view.
Yes.
So for you people who are thinking of buying, listen up here. If you are in a bidding war, it sounds like they're somewhat common now, how do you know how much to offer? I mean, that seems like a nerve-wracking decision if you're crazy about a home.
It can be very nerve-wracking. I would say, I'll just back up a bit. If a buyer can avoid multiple offers, that's definitely to their advantage. One thing that can be done to try to avoid multiples is to get into a home right away as soon as it's listed and generate an offer before maybe others put their hat in the ring.
So if you make a good offer and it's the first one,
a good offer,
you might have a good chance.
Yes, try to avoid those multiples. And also, I am a huge believer in writing letters to the sellers. It never ceases to amaze me how sellers respond to these letters.
I've never heard of that idea, Rebecca.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. People, here's another thing about trying to sell your house yourself. Real estate is a very emotional transaction for most people. And so when you're selling your house, you have emotions about your home. And it helps to have a professional that's really somewhat, negotiating the issues that can be so emotional for people.
A lot of feelings of sadness when you sell a home.
Yes. It can be a wide range of emotions. Some
Sure.
people become, upset if they feel a price is too low or someone's criticizing their house, because once there's an offer accepted, then there's the inspection period that can be very emotional for both sides.
But the inspection from the housing.
The buyers generally have a home inspection. They choose their home inspector. They pay for that themselves.
Right.
And
that person's looking for any flaws that maybe didn't show up.
That's right, exactly.
And if flaws, well, I'm using the word flaws loosely, but let's say problems show up, then it's on the responsibility, or it is the responsibility of the seller to correct those things? Always?
Everything is negotiable.
Okay.
It's
That's good to
negotiated.
know.
Yes.
So the buyer could say, well, if you don't want to fix that problem on the roof, we'll take it as it is, but we'll offer you less.
That could happen. It's just
simple-
very negotiable. And
Okay.
it's a wild card. The inspection is always a hurdle. You don't know, is this buyer going to be reasonable or not? For sellers, that's another advantage of having multiples, because those buyers tend to be more reasonable because they know there are other parties
that's a good point.
waiting in the wings. Whereas during the downturn, it could be very brutal for sellers because buyers had so much power. It could be very hard.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the cost to have the inspector come in, several $100s, correct?
Yes, it varies. It varies from inspector to inspector and based on square footage, but I would say minimal $300 to $500.
Okay. And how does one go about finding an inspector? Does your real estate agent give you a list?
Some do have lists and of suggestions. I think we try not to steer people to choose an inspector, but I provide a list of who I think who are good inspectors, and then I encourage them to ask friends and family if they have recommendations as well.
Okay, that's a interesting aspect of this. When you're offering a home and paying, saying we'll put this much down, is it usually in the buyer's best interest to put as much down as you can and put it down in cash and give the seller that bonus?
I advise my buyers to talk to their lender about that because they are the experts and they review their finances, the buyer's finances, and they can best advise them how to proceed there. Typically, sellers, they look at what their bottom line is. That's what's important to them. They may not care how much they care to some degree, but what they tend to care about is their bottom line. And they do look at who are the lenders, because there are some lenders that have stellar reputations, and that's helpful to both parties, in my opinion.
And that would be something a realtor would know that a person selling on their own probably wouldn't know, isn't it?
It's possible too.
Are homes here in our Minnesota metro area significantly less than other large urban areas in the Midwest, or are we higher? Let's compare just roughly to Chicago, Milwaukee, Denver.
Real estate is very local, and so I try to I do try to keep my have a good general knowledge about the national market, but I certainly don't know the specifics. But I can say that the metro area has just been doing very, very well.
But
and
that
holding
means
our
prices
own.
going up a lot when you say very well, right?
Yes, and and it's all somewhat relative to the cost of living and so forth. If
Sure.
you're living in Manhattan, it's all somewhat relative. So I'm not an expert on
Right, it gets
those
complicated real
markets.
fast.
Yes, but overall, our economy and real estate market here in the metro has been doing very well.
I'm getting the sign that we need to give some
Okay.
resource information for people. So if you want to learn more about this big topic, we've got, I believe, 3 websites. The first one is Rebecca's website. So you can go to www.rebeccapowellhomes.com. Do we need to put the capitals in as they are?
No, it's not case
It's not
sensitive.
case sensitive. Okay, and then there's the website www.consumer, and I have to read it, consumerfinance.gov.
Yes.
And that is one you recommend, and tell us why.
There are changes that began taking place on October 3rd in the lending industry, federal regulations, and that's a good source for people to educate themselves and talk to their lender.
I did just read a bit about the closing changes, and it sounds like it's going to stretch out closing periods much longer than we experience them now.
It will be stretching them out, and time will tell. Some lenders believe they can still close in 30 days, 45 days. Some are thinking 60 days is more typical, but time will tell.
Is there one more website that we have up? Here it is. It's the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors, and that is www.mplsrealtor.com. And why is this important?
That is information that comes through MAR, the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. It's all based on actual data and facts, and it encompasses 13 counties. And it's a great website for the public. And
for both
realtors.
buyer and seller?
Yes, and
Okay.
it's a great website, very comprehensive.
Well, all three of these are important, so I hope you could jot them down. Well, thank you so much for joining me and really educating me and the viewers about this really important topic and interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Rebecca.
much, Mary. Thank you for your show.
Oh, of course. I will see you next week. Until then, have a very good week. Bye-bye.